The Alpha King smelled her before he saw her, blood, fear, and something else that made his wolf howl for the first time in 5 years. Cale Blackwood stopped mid-stride, his hand still reaching for the back door of his restaurant. Rain hammered the Chicago alley, turning the pavement into rivers of reflected neon. His wolf surged forward, pressing against his skin with an urgency he hadn't felt since he was a teenager still learning control. There, behind the dumpster, crouched low, breathing too fast, he moved without thinking, stepping into the rain. Water soaked through his suit jacket in seconds, but he barely noticed. Every sense he possessed locked onto the figure huddled in the shadows. She was small, dark hair plastered to her face, wearing a thin dress that might have been yellow before the rain and the dirt and the blood got to it. Her hands shook around a kitchen knife, cheap, dull, but she held it like she knew exactly where to put it. Their eyes met. The world stopped. Mate. The word exploded through him like a bomb going off. His wolf howled, triumphant and desperate all at once. 5 years. 5 years of nothing. Of numbness. Of wondering if he'd been cursed to rule alone forever. And here she was. But her eyes, dark brown, almost black, held no recognition. No answering spark. No instinctive pull toward him. Only terror. Stay back. Her voice came out raw, barely above a whisper. The knife trembled but didn't lower. I'll use this. Cale raised both hands slowly. Rain ran down his forearms, dripped from his fingers. I'm not going to hurt you. Everyone says that. Something in those 3 words made his wolf want to tear the world apart. Someone had hurt her. Someone had hurt his mate, and she was sitting in a filthy alley in the rain expecting him to do the same. I own this restaurant. He kept his voice low, steady. The same tone he used with traumatized wolves who'd fled abusive packs. You're behind my building. Her eyes darted to the door behind him, then back to his face. Calculating, measuring, looking for the trap. I'll leave. She started to stand, wincing as she put weight on her left leg. I wasn't trying to. I just needed a minute. You're hurt. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. Even through the rain, he could smell the blood. Not a lot, but enough. And underneath it, something that made his stomach turn. Fear so deep it had soaked into her skin like old perfume. This woman had been afraid for a long time. At least come inside, he said. Get dry. I'll have my chef make you something to eat. The knife wavered. He could see the war on her face. Hunger versus caution. Cold versus survival instinct. Why? The word was sharp with suspicion. Because you look like you need help. Nobody helps for free. I'm not asking for payment. That's what. She stopped herself. Pressed her lips together hard enough to turn them white. That's what he said too. Cale didn't push. He just stood there in the rain, hands still raised, letting her look at him. Letting her see that he wasn't moving toward her, wasn't trying to corner her, wasn't doing any of the things that had clearly been done to her before. The rain got heavier. Her shivering got worse. The knife lowered an inch. Just food, she said finally. And then I'm gone. Whatever you want. She stood fully, and he saw the damage more clearly now. Bruises on her arms. A cut above her eyebrow that had bled down the side of her face before the rain washed it away. She moved like everything hurt, but she moved like she'd been hurting for long enough to learn how to function through it. His wolf wanted blood. Cale wanted names. But right now, what she needed was warmth and food and someone who wasn't going to demand anything from her. So that's what he'd give her. He turned toward the door, moving slowly enough that she could follow at her own pace. I'm Cale. A long pause. Elena. Elena. He turned the name over in his mind. Rolled it across his tongue without speaking it. His wolf committed it to memory like a sacred thing. The kitchen was warm and bright, and his staff froze when he walked in with a soaking wet, blood-stained woman behind him. He shot a look at his sous chef that made everyone suddenly very interested in their own stations. This way. He led Elena through a side door into a small private dining room. Usually reserved for pack business, but tonight it would serve a different purpose. Sit wherever you're comfortable. She chose the chair closest to the emergency exit. Smart. Sad, but smart. He grabbed a clean towel from a stack near the server station and set it on the table in front of her instead of handing it to her directly. Giving her space. Letting her control even the small things. I'll have food sent in. Any allergies? She shook her head, watching him like he might transform into something dangerous at any second. Which, ironically, he could. But she didn't know that. He didn't know how much she didn't know. Sit tight. He made himself walk away, even though every instinct screamed at him to stay, to hover, to make sure nothing else hurt her ever again. In the kitchen, he pulled out his phone and dialed his beta. Marcus answered on the first ring. "Boss? I need you at the restaurant. Now, everything okay?" Cale looked through the window in the door at the woman in the dining room. She'd picked up the towel but hadn't used it. Just sat there holding it, staring at the table like she couldn't quite believe she was inside somewhere warm. "No," he said, "but it's about to be." Elena couldn't stop shaking. She wasn't sure anymore if it was the cold or the fear or just her body finally giving out after 3 days of running. 3 days of sleeping in doorways and eating out of gas station trash cans and jumping at every shadow. 3 days since Marcus had wrapped his hands around her throat and squeezed until black spots danced across her vision. 3 days since she'd played dead and waited until he left for his meeting and ran with nothing but her shoes and a knife stolen from the kitchen. She'd been so careful. 5 years of careful. 5 years of being the perfect wife, never too loud, never too demanding, never giving him a reason. But there was never any reason, was there? That was the thing about men like Marcus. They didn't need one. The door opened and she flinched so hard she nearly knocked over her chair. But it was just a server, young, nervous looking, carrying a tray. He set it down without coming too close, gave her an awkward nod, and disappeared. The smell hit her, and her stomach cramped so hard she doubled over. Food, real food, steak and potatoes and vegetables that glistened with butter. A basket of bread that was still steaming. A pot of coffee and a glass of water and a smaller plate of something chocolate. She stared at it for a long moment, waiting for the catch. Nothing happened. Elena reached for the bread first, telling herself to go slow, knowing she wouldn't. She'd eaten half the basket before she realized she was crying. Cale watched through the security camera on his phone, standing in the alley with his beta, Marcus Reyes. No relation to whoever had hurt his mate, but the coincidence of the name made him want to punch something. "She's human," Marcus said, looking at the same feed. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "Shit, Cale. Yeah, the council's going to lose their minds. The council can go to hell." Marcus didn't argue. He'd been with Cale for 15 years, through every challenge and every political nightmare and every lonely night when Cale had wondered if there was any point to any of it. He knew better than to question his alpha about this. "Someone hurt her," Cale said quietly. "Badly. I need to know who." "On it. And Marcus? They don't get a trial." His beta nodded once and walked away into the rain. Cale was about to go back inside when he heard it. Car doors, footsteps, the unmistakable scent of humans who thought they were hunting something. 2 men stepped into the alley from the street. Big, professional, wearing suits that bulged wrong at the shoulders. "Hey," one of them called. "We're looking for a woman. Might have come through here." Cale stayed where he was, let the shadows cover him. "Haven't seen anyone." The second man pulled out a phone, showed him a picture. Even from 20 feet away, Cale recognized Elena. The photo was formal, some kind of charity event. She was wearing diamonds and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, standing next to a man with gray temples and cold, possessive hands on her waist. "Her husband's worried sick," the man said. "She's not well, having some kind of episode." The lie was so smooth it was almost impressive. "Like I said." Cale stepped forward, out of the shadows. "Haven't seen her." The men exchanged looks, sizing him up, deciding if he was worth the trouble. He was worth more trouble than they could possibly imagine. "Maybe we'll ask around," the first one said. "Talk to your staff." "No." The word came out in a different register. Deeper, carrying an edge that made both men take an involuntary step back. They were human, but some part of their monkey brains still remembered what it felt like to be prey. "Now wait a minute." One of them reached toward his jacket. Toward a gun. Cale's wolf didn't wait for permission. The shift took less than a second. One moment he was a man in a wet suit. The next he was something else entirely. 8 feet of muscle and fur and teeth, standing on 2 legs with claws that could tear through steel. The men screamed. The door behind him burst open. Elena stood there, knife raised, eyes wild, and then she saw him. Her face went white, her mouth opened, no sound came out. She swayed once, twice, and then her eyes rolled back and she crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. Cale caught her before she hit the ground, his shift reversing so fast it hurt. He knelt there in the rain, holding his unconscious mate, while her husband's men ran for their lives. She weighed nothing, less than nothing. She smelled like fear and blood and something underneath that was purely her. Something his wolf recognized like a song he'd been waiting his whole life to hear. I've got you, he murmured against her wet hair, even though she couldn't hear him. I've got you now. Whatever she was running from, it would have to go through him first. And Cale Blackwood hadn't lost a fight in 200 years. Wanting to see what would happen next? Subscribe to this channel to get to listen to more of our upcoming exciting stories. Click on the subscribe button now. Thank you. Chapter 2. Elena woke to silk sheets and sunlight and the absolute certainty that she was still dreaming. She lay perfectly still, the way Marcus had taught her. Don't move until you know where he is. Don't open your eyes until you've listened for his breathing. Don't do anything that might set him off before you've had a chance to gauge his mood. But the breathing she heard wasn't Marcus's. It was slower, deeper, coming from somewhere to her left, near the window. She opened her eyes. The room was enormous, twice the size of the master bedroom in Marcus's penthouse, with ceilings that soared up to exposed wooden beams and windows that stretched floor to ceiling. Everything was done in deep blues and grays, masculine but not cold. A fire crackled in a stone fireplace across from the bed, and in a leather armchair by the window, watching her with eyes that caught the morning light like amber glass, sat the man from the alley. Cale, the monster. Elena sat up so fast her head spun. She scrambled backward until her spine hit the headboard, hands searching frantically for a weapon, any weapon. Easy. He didn't move from the chair. Didn't stand. Didn't come toward her. You're safe. Where am I? My home. About 40 minutes outside the city. She looked down at herself. Someone had changed her clothes. She was wearing a soft cotton t-shirt that hung past her thighs and nothing else. Panic clawed up her throat. My housekeeper, Cale said, reading her face. Diana. She's 73 and she'd castrate me if I tried anything. She cleaned you up, treated your cuts, put you to bed. I haven't touched you. Elena's hands were shaking. She couldn't make them stop. I saw you. In the alley. You turned into a wolf. Yes. He said it so simply. Like he was confirming he'd had eggs for breakfast. That's not possible. And yet you saw it. She had. God help her, she had. 1 second he'd been a man, and the next he'd been something out of a nightmare, huge and furred and fanged. She'd stood in that doorway with her stolen knife and watched him become a creature that shouldn't exist. And then she'd fainted like some Victorian heroine, which was embarrassing as hell. What are you? Her voice came out steadier than she expected. A werewolf. He leaned forward slightly, resting his forearms on his knees. There are others like me. Many others. We've existed alongside humans for thousands of years. That's insane. Probably. But it's also true. Elena pressed her palms flat against the mattress, grounding herself. This was real. She was awake. And she was in the home of a man who could turn into a wolf. Out of the frying pan, into the fire. Those men in the alley, she said. They were looking for me. They were. They won't find you. You don't know my husband. Something shifted in Cale's expression. It was subtle. Just a tightening around his jaw, a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. But Elena had spent 5 years learning to read the small signs. She knew what controlled rage looked like. Marcus Valdez, he said. 52 years old, CEO of Valdez Holdings. Net worth approximately $800 million. Sits on the boards of 3 major charities and golfs with 2 federal judges. He paused. Has a reputation for being very generous to the police benevolent fund. Her stomach dropped. You looked him up. I needed to know what we're dealing with. Then you know. She heard the defeat in her own voice and hated it. You know he'll never stop looking. You know he has connections everywhere. You know that if you're hiding me, you're making yourself a target. Yes. And you did it anyway? Yes. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Cale was quiet for a long moment, his gaze never leaving her face. There was something in the way he looked at her that made Elena's skin prickle, not with fear, exactly, but with awareness. Like he was seeing something she couldn't. That's complicated, he finally said. Uncomplicated. Almost, he smiled. You're not what I expected. You don't know me. No, but I'd like to. There it was. The catch. Elena felt the familiar cold settle into her bones, the resignation she'd learned to wear like armor. Of course there was a catch. There was always a catch. Powerful men didn't help broken women out of the goodness of their hearts. They helped because they wanted something. Because broken women were easy to control. What do you want from me? She made herself ask it directly. Better to know now than to find out later when she was even more trapped than before. Nothing you're not willing to give. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. He stood then, and she tensed automatically, but he only moved to the window, putting more distance between them rather than less. There are things I need to explain to you, Elena. Things about what I am and what you are to me. But you've been through hell, and I don't think you're ready to hear them. Let me decide what I'm ready for. He turned to look at her, backlit by the morning sun. He was tall, she'd noticed that in the alley, but here, in this quiet room, he seemed even larger. Not threatening, exactly, just substantial, like he could hold up the weight of the world if he had to. Marcus had seemed like that too, once. Among my kind, Cale said slowly, there's something called a mate bond. It's a connection between two people who are meant to be together. Destined, if you believe in that sort of thing. Elena stared at him. You're telling me you believe in soulmates. I'm telling you I didn't believe in them. Not really. I'd given up hoping I'd ever find mine. His eyes held hers, and something in his expression made her breath catch. And then I walked into that alley and smelled you, and my wolf knew. Immediately. Absolutely. You're my mate, Elena. My other half. The person I've been waiting 200 years for. The silence stretched between them. Then Elena laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was bitter and broken and edged with hysteria, and once she started, she couldn't stop. She laughed until tears streamed down her face, until her ribs ached, until Cale's expression shifted from earnest to concerned. I'm sorry, she gasped, pressing her hand to her mouth. I'm sorry, it's just, another wave of laughter took her. You're telling me that I escaped one man who thought he owned me just to land in the lap of another one who thinks the universe says he owns me? That's, I don't own you, right, you just think we're destined. She spat the word like a curse. Do you have any idea how many times Marcus told me we were meant to be? How many times he said no one would ever love me like he did? How many times he convinced me that everything he did was because we belonged together? Cale went very still. I was 19 when I met him. Elena's laughter died as quickly as it had come, leaving something cold and hard in its place. He was charming, sophisticated. He made me feel special. Protected. She met Cale's eyes. Sound familiar? Elena. The first time he hit me, he cried afterward. Said he couldn't control himself because he loved me so much. Said it would never happen again. She touched her throat absently, where the bruises from 3 days ago were probably still visible. It always happened again. I would never. You don't know what you would do. You don't know anything about me. We met 6 hours ago, and you're already talking about destiny and bonds and, she shook her head. I'm not doing this again. I can't. She threw back the covers and stood, ignoring the way her legs wobbled. There had to be clothes somewhere. A door. A way out of this beautiful cage. Elena, stop. Don't tell me what to do. You're not a prisoner here. Then let me leave. Cale was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was careful, measured. You can leave whenever you want. But before you go, I need you to understand your options. She paused, hand on what she assumed was a closet door. Options? Marcus has reported you missing. He's given interviews, crying, devastated, begging for his wife to come home. Cale's jaw tightened. He's claiming you had a mental breakdown. That you're confused and possibly dangerous. The police are looking for you, Elena. Not to help you, to bring you back to him. The floor seemed to tilt under her feet. Of course Marcus would do this. He'd warned her, hadn't he? If you ever leave me, I'll find you. And when I do, I'll have you committed. Who do you think they'll believe? A respected businessman or a crazy woman with a knife? What am I supposed to do? The words came out broken. Where am I supposed to go? You can stay here, under my protection. No one would dare touch you in my territory. Not Marcus, not the police, not anyone. Cale moved closer, but stopped several feet away, giving her space. Or I can give you money and a new identity. Set you up somewhere far from here. You'd be on your own, but you'd be free. She turned to look at him. Why would you do that? If you think I'm your mate or whatever, why would you let me go? Because you're not a prize to be won. His voice was rough. You're a person, and whatever this bond is, whatever it means, it's worthless if you don't choose it freely. I won't be another man who takes your choices away from you, Elena. I'd rather spend the rest of my life alone than become that. She searched his face for the lie, for the crack in the mask, for the moment when the charming facade would slip and she'd see the monster underneath, not the wolf, but the real monster, the kind that wore human skin all the time. She didn't find it. That scared her more than anything. I need to think, she said. Take all the time you need. There's a bathroom through that door. Clothes in the closet. When you're ready, come downstairs and meet me in the kitchen. Diana will have made breakfast. He paused at the door. Whatever you decide, Elena, I'll respect it. You have my word. Then he was gone, and she was alone with the impossible choice between a new kind of cage and the terrifying uncertainty of freedom. The closet was bigger than her first apartment. Elena stood in the doorway, staring at rows of women's clothing that still had the tags attached. Everything from jeans to evening gowns. Multiple sizes, like someone had panic bought an entire department store without knowing what would fit. She chose the simplest things she could find. A plain white t-shirt, dark jeans, flat boots. Armor for whatever came next. The bathroom was equally excessive, marble and chrome and a shower with more jets than she could count. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and flinched. The bruises on her throat had turned purple-green. The cut above her eyebrow was held together with butterfly bandages. She looked like exactly what she was. A woman who'd been beaten and had barely escaped. She showered quickly, keeping the water cool to stay alert. Afterward, she explored the bedroom more carefully. No locks on the windows, but they were too high to jump from. No phone, no computer, nothing she could use to contact the outside world. Or to call for help. But who would she call? Her parents were dead. Her sister had stopped speaking to her years ago. Marcus had made sure of that. The few friends she'd had before the marriage had drifted away, discouraged by her increasingly controlled social calendar. Marcus had isolated her so thoroughly that even now, standing in the wreckage of her escape, she couldn't think of a single person who would help her. Except, apparently, a werewolf who thought she was his soulmate. The universe had a sick sense of humor. She found her way downstairs by following the smell of coffee and bacon. The house was even larger than she'd realized. More of an estate, really, with high ceilings and wooden floors and artwork that looked original rather than reproduced. But it didn't feel cold. There were worn spots on the rugs, books stacked on tables, a pair of muddy boots by the back door that someone had forgotten to put away. It felt, improbably, like a home. The kitchen was enormous, built around a massive island where a small, silver-haired woman was flipping pancakes with the efficiency of a professional. There she is. The woman turned, and her face creased into a warm smile. I'm Diana. How are you feeling, sweetheart? I'm fine, thank you. Elena hesitated in the doorway. Thank you for last night. For taking care of me. Nonsense. Couldn't have you catching pneumonia on top of everything else. Diana gestured to a stool at the island. Sit, eat. You look like you haven't had a proper meal in weeks. Elena sat, mostly because she didn't know what else to do. Diana set a plate in front of her piled high with pancakes, eggs, and bacon, and the smell made her stomach growl loudly enough to be embarrassing. Where's Kale? Handling things. Diana poured her a cup of coffee without asking. He's a busy man, our alpha. Especially now. Alpha? Leader. Of the pack. Diana said it casually, like she was explaining that he was a middle manager at some company. There are about 300 of us in this territory. He's responsible for all of them. 300 werewolves. Elena picked up her fork because it gave her something to do with her hands. Are you one of them? A werewolf? Oh, heavens no. I'm human, same as you. My late husband was a wolf, though. Wonderful man. We had 42 years together before he passed. Diana's smile turned bittersweet. The pack is my family now. Elena thought about that while she ate. A human woman, living among werewolves, accepted and cared for. It shouldn't have been comforting. Nothing about this situation should have been comforting, but somehow it was. She was finishing her second cup of coffee when voices drifted in from somewhere deeper in the house. Male voices, raised in what sounded like an argument. Can't just keep her here, Kale. Do you have any idea what you're risking? I know exactly what I'm risking. She's human. She's married. Her husband has connections to the FBI, for God's sake. If he traces her here, then he'll learn why no one crosses the Blackwood pack. A door opened somewhere, and the voices got clearer. Two men walked into the kitchen, Kale and another man Elena didn't recognize. The second man was tall, dark-skinned, with close-cropped hair and the kind of coldly handsome face that belonged on a magazine cover or a wanted poster. He looked at Elena like she was a problem he was calculating how to solve. Elena. Kale's expression softened when he saw her. This is Dominic, my beta. Second in command. Ma'am. Dominic's nod was polite, but his eyes stayed hard. I need to speak with you. Dom. She should know what she's walking into. Dominic crossed his arms. You owe her that much. Cale looked like he wanted to argue, but after a moment, he nodded. Fine, but I stay. Fine. Elena set down her coffee cup. What do I need to know? Dominic didn't sugarcoat it. Harboring you puts this entire pack at risk. Your husband has resources, influence. If he finds out you're here, he could bring down enough heat to expose our kind. We've spent centuries staying hidden. One human woman isn't worth destroying that. Dom. Cale's voice carried a warning. She needs to hear it. Dominic's attention stayed on Elena. There are people in this pack who don't want you here, who see you as a liability. Some of them will come around, but others won't. You need to understand that not everyone is going to welcome you with open arms just because our alpha claims you're his mate. Elena absorbed this. And what do you think? I think Cale is the best leader this pack has ever had. I think his judgment is usually sound. Dominic paused. I also think the mate bond can make wolves do stupid things. I haven't decided yet which category this falls into. Fair enough. Something flickered in Dominic's expression, surprise, maybe, or grudging respect. He'd probably expected her to cry or argue or look to Cale for protection. She was done looking to men for protection. Here's what I need to know, Elena said. If I stay, can you actually keep Marcus from finding me? Not just for now, but long term? Because he won't stop. Not ever. He told me once that he'd burn down the whole world before he'd let me go. I believe him. Cale stepped forward. Elena, I'm asking him. She didn't look away from Dominic. You're the one who thinks I'm a risk. So tell me, can you protect this pack from what's coming if I stay? Dominic studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was a sharp thing, more wolf than human. Marcus Valdez is a big fish in a small human pond, he said. He has no idea that there are creatures in the water who could swallow him whole. If he comes for you here, he won't be coming for a helpless woman anymore. He'll be declaring war on one of the most powerful packs in North America. The smile widened. I'd almost like to see him try. So you can protect me. We can end anyone who threatens you. Whether we should is a different question. Then let me answer it for you. Elena stood, and something had changed in her. Some steel had returned to her spine. I've spent 5 years being afraid. Being small. Being the woman Marcus wanted me to be because it was safer than being myself. I'm done. I don't know what I believe about mates and bonds and destiny. But I know what I saw in that alley. She looked at Cale. His eyes were fixed on her with an intensity that should have been frightening but somehow wasn't. I saw a monster, she said. A real one. And for the first time in 5 years, I wasn't the most dangerous thing in the room. I wasn't the prey. She took a breath. I'm staying. Not because I trust you. I don't. Not yet. But because if Marcus comes for me here, he's going to find out that his broken little wife has teeth now. Silence. Then Dominic laughed. A real laugh, surprised out of him. Well, he said, glancing at Cale. Maybe I underestimated her. Yeah. Cale's voice was rough. Maybe you did. Later, after Dominic had left to inform the pack, and Diana had excused herself to handle some household matter, Elena found herself alone with Cale in the vast, sun-filled living room. You've been watching me sleep. The words came out before she could stop them. She'd noticed the chair by the window in the bedroom, noticed the worn spot on the armrest like someone had been gripping it for hours. Cale went still. Yes. Why? The bond. He said it simply, without excuse. It's hard to explain. Being near you quiets something in me that's been restless for centuries. When you were unconscious, I couldn't make myself leave. I tried. That's creepy. I know. Marcus used to watch me sleep too. Said it was because I was so beautiful. Later I found out it was because he was timing my breathing to see if I was faking. Cale flinched like she'd struck him. I'm not. I know you're not him. Elena cut him off. But you need to understand something. Everything he did started out romantic. Protective. He wanted to know where I was because he worried about me. He chose my clothes because he wanted me to look my best. He monitored my calls because there were people who wanted to hurt me. She met his eyes. The cage doesn't feel like a cage when someone's convinced you it's for your own good. What do you want me to do? The question surprised her. No argument, no defense, no explanation of how he was different. I want you to give me space, she said slowly. I want you to let me come to you instead of always being there. I want to learn who you are when you're not hovering over me like I might break. Done. Just like that? You asked. I'm answering. Cale's expression was serious, intent. I won't pretend the bond doesn't affect me. It does. Every instinct I have wants to be near you, protect you, make sure nothing ever hurts you again. But instinct isn't destiny. I get to choose how I act on it. He paused, and I choose to give you whatever you need to feel safe. Even if that means staying away. Elena didn't know what to say to that. 5 years of marriage to Marcus had taught her that men's promises meant nothing, that words were just tools for manipulation, that the sweeter they sounded, the sharper the blade hidden inside. But Cale wasn't Marcus. She didn't know yet what he was instead. I'm going to need time, she said finally. A lot of it. I've got nothing but time. Almost, he smiled. 200 years, remember? That's ridiculous. Probably. They stood there in the sunlight, two people who shouldn't have had anything in common, separated by species and circumstance and centuries of impossible history. Elena felt the weight of everything she didn't know pressing down on her. This world she'd stumbled into, this man who claimed she was his destiny, this future that stretched ahead of her unmarked and uncertain. She'd spent so long just trying to survive. She'd forgotten what it felt like to have choices. I should explore the house, she said, because she needed to move, needed to do something besides stand here feeling the impossible pull of his attention. Learn my way around. Diana can show you, or I can, if you prefer. Diana. He nodded, not looking hurt. I'll be in my office if you need anything. Third door on the left, down the main hallway. Okay. She started to turn away, then stopped. There was something she needed to say, even if she didn't fully understand why. Thank you for the choice. Most people would have just taken. I'm not most people. No, she said quietly. I'm starting to realize that. She left him standing in the sunlight, and if she felt his eyes on her back as she walked away, she pretended she didn't. She had a cage to learn. And maybe, if she was lucky, a door that might actually lead somewhere other than darkness. Chapter 3. The nightmares started on the third night. Elena woke gasping, the smell of smoke still burning in her nostrils, the echo of a woman's scream still ringing in her ears. She sat up in the dark, heart pounding, hands fisted in the silk sheets. Just a dream, but it hadn't felt like a dream. It had felt like a memory, vivid and sharp and achingly real. A house on fire, a woman with dark hair running through the flames, carrying something precious. The crack of gunshots, the howl of wolves, and a voice, soft and desperate, run, Mia Moore. Run and don't look back. Elena pressed her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. She hadn't thought about her mother in years. Couldn't think about her. The memories were too faded, too fragile, wrapped in the cotton wool of early childhood. Her mother had died when Elena was 3. A car accident, her father had said. Quick, painless, but in the dream, there had been nothing quick about it. Nothing painless. She didn't sleep again that night. By the end of the first week, Elena had mapped most of the estate. The main house had 12 bedrooms, a library that would have made Belle weep with joy, and a kitchen that could feed an army. There was a gym in the basement, a heated pool in a glass-walled addition off the back, and a wine cellar that Diana had warned her away from with a knowing smile. Outside, the grounds stretched for miles, forests and meadows and a lake that glittered in the autumn sunlight. Elena walked the perimeter every morning, learning the paths, testing the boundaries. No one stopped her. No one followed her. Cale kept his word. She barely saw him. He was there at meals sometimes, sitting at the far end of the massive dining table, making conversation with whoever else was present but never pushing her to engage. He nodded when their eyes met, asked how she'd slept, accepted her one-word answers without complaint. It should have been a relief. Instead, Elena found herself noticing his absence like a missing tooth. Her tongue kept probing the empty space. You're staring at his chair again. Elena startled, nearly spilling her coffee. Maya Blackwood dropped into the seat across from her with the easy grace that seemed to be standard issue for werewolves, grinning like she'd just won a prize. I wasn't staring. You were totally staring. It's okay, everyone stares at Cale. He's very stareable. Maya propped her chin on her hand. Also, he's my brother, so I'm contractually obligated to give you a hard time about it. Elena had met Maya on her second day at the estate. Cale's younger sister was everything he wasn't, bright and bouncy and completely incapable of respecting personal space. She'd appointed herself Elena's unofficial guide to pack life and refused to take no for an answer. He's been avoiding me, Elena said, then immediately wished she hadn't. It sounded too much like she cared. He's giving you space. There's a difference. Maya stole a piece of bacon from Elena's plate. Trust me, if you could see inside his head right now, you'd know he's definitely not avoiding you. His wolf is going absolutely insane. His wolf? The animal part of him. We all have one. It's like having a roommate in your brain who has very strong opinions about everything. Maya's smile softened. When you find your mate, the wolf becomes intense, protective, obsessive, if you let it. Kale's been fighting his instincts every second since he found you. It's actually kind of impressive. Elena thought about that, about what it might cost someone to want something so badly and force themselves to stay away. Why are you telling me this? Because you look at him like you're waiting for him to turn into someone else. And I get it, from what I've heard, you have good reasons for that. But Kale isn't going to hurt you, Elena. He'd rather die. People say that. They don't always mean it. Humans say that. Wolves? Maya shook her head. For us, it's not a figure of speech. The mate bond is sacred. If Kale ever raised a hand to you, his wolf would tear him apart from the inside. Literally. I've seen it happen. A wolf who betrayed his mate. He was dead within a week, and no one had to touch him. Elena's coffee had gone cold in her hands. She set it down carefully. That's terrifying? Yeah, a little. But it's also kind of beautiful, when you think about it. There's no lying, no pretending. What you see is what you get. Maya stood, stretching. Anyway, I promised to show you the greenhouse today. Diana's been growing wolfsbane, which is hilarious because it's literally poison to us, but apparently it makes great tea for humans. Come on. She bounced toward the door without waiting for an answer. Elena followed, because it was easier than sitting alone with her thoughts, and because Maya's chatter filled the silence that had become too loud. The greenhouse was warm and humid, filled with plants Elena didn't recognize. Diana was there, pruning something with vicious purple flowers, and she waved them in without pausing her work. The wolfsbane is in the back corner. Don't let her touch the moonlace, she breaks out in hives. That was one time, Maya protested, one time that required 3 days of healing. Shoo. They moved through the rows of plants while Maya explained each one. Some were medicinal, used to speed healing or ease the pain of shifting. Others were practical, herbs for cooking, flowers for ceremonies. A few were dangerous, kept behind locked glass. What's that one? Elena pointed to a small plant with silver leaves that seemed to shimmer in the light. Luna's breath. It's used in mating ceremonies. Maya's voice softened. The couple shares a drink made from the leaves. It's supposed to strengthen the bond between them. Supposed to? Well, Kale hasn't exactly had a chance to test it yet. Maya gave her a sidelong look. Not that he's pressuring you. He's not. I just mean. I know what you mean. They walked in silence for a moment. Elena found herself drawn to the wolfsbane Diana had mentioned, small white flowers that looked deceptively innocent. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. These memories I'm having. The dreams. Elena touched one of the wolfsbane petals gently. They don't feel like mine. It's like I'm watching someone else's life. Is that normal? Maya went still. What kind of memories? Fire. A woman running. Screaming. Elena's throat tightened. I think she might be my mother, but that doesn't make sense. She died in a car accident when I was 3. I don't remember anything about her. Elena. Maya's usual brightness had faded, replaced by something careful and concerned. Have you talked to Kale about this? Why would I talk to Kale? Because the mate bond can do strange things. Sometimes it transfers memories, ancestral ones, from your bloodline. Things you shouldn't be able to know but somehow do. Maya bit her lip. It's rare, but it happens. Usually when there's something in your past that's trying to surface. The words hit Elena like cold water. What do you mean, in my past? I mean, Maya hesitated. I mean that sometimes the bond awakens things. Dormant things. And if your mother was. She trailed off, but Elena understood. If her mother was a wolf. That's impossible. I'm human. Are you sure? The question hung in the air between them. Elena thought about the dreams. The fire. The woman with dark hair who looked so much like her. Run, Mia Moore. Run and don't look back. I need to talk to Kale, she heard herself say. Maya nodded, something like relief flickering across her face. I'll take you to him. Kale's office was on the 2nd floor, behind a heavy oak door that Maya knocked on once before pushing open. Brother, you have a visitor. Elena stepped inside, and the first thing she noticed was the wall of windows looking out over the forest. The second thing she noticed was Kale, standing behind his desk with his phone pressed to his ear, his expression thunderous. He saw her and said something sharp into the phone before hanging up. Elena, is everything okay? I need to ask you something. Maya slipped out and closed the door behind her. Elena stood just inside the threshold, suddenly unsure how to begin. The dreams I've been having, she said finally. They're not normal. Kale's expression shifted, became careful in a way that made her stomach tighten. What kind of dreams? Memories. Of a fire. A woman, my mother, I think, running through flames. There were gunshots. Wolves howling. She watched his face as she spoke. Maya said the mate bond can transfer ancestral memories. That it can awaken dormant things. Kale was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved around the desk and gestured to a chair. Sit down. I'd rather stand. Elena, please. Something in his voice made her comply. She sat on the edge of the leather chair, her hands folded tightly in her lap, and watched him take the seat across from her. I've been investigating your background, he said slowly. I told you I needed to know what we were dealing with. What I didn't tell you was that I found something. Found what? Your mother. Kale met her eyes. Her name was Isabella Reyes before she married your father. She came from a small pack in New Mexico, the Silver Creek Pack. Elena's heart was beating too fast. I don't understand. My mother she wasn't like you. No, she was an Omega, the lowest rank in pack hierarchy but also the rarest. Omegas have a gift for calming others, for healing emotional wounds. They're precious to any pack. He paused. 22 years ago, the Silver Creek Pack was massacred. Every man, woman, and child. Isabella was one of the few survivors. She fled, changed her name, married your father, and had you. The room was spinning. Elena gripped the arms of the chair. That's not possible. My father would have known. He didn't. She hid it from everyone. Including you. Kale leaned forward. Elena, you're not fully human. You're half werewolf. Your abilities have been suppressed, probably by your mother, to protect you. But the mate bond is waking them up. No. She shook her head. No, this is insane. I've never shifted. I've never. Your wolf has been sleeping. But she's starting to wake. Kale's voice was gentle. That's why you're having the dreams. Your mother's memories are surfacing because your wolf recognizes the truth, even if your human mind doesn't. Elena stood abruptly. She needed to move, needed to get away from the weight of his words. Why would my mother hide this from me? Why wouldn't she tell me what I was? Because she was afraid. Kale stood too, but kept his distance. The pack that destroyed Silver Creek, they were funded by hunters. Humans who know about our kind and want us exterminated. Your mother was trying to keep you safe by keeping you ignorant. And the hunters? Who were they? Kale went still. His expression shifted, became something hard and dangerous. Elena, who were they? The Valdez family. The name hit her like a physical blow. She actually staggered, catching herself on the back of the chair. What? Marcus's father funded the Silver Creek massacre. Marcus himself was barely 20 at the time, but the family records show he was involved in the planning. They've been hunting our kind for generations, Elena. It's the family business. Kale's voice was rough. And Marcus didn't choose you randomly. He knew exactly what you were. He's been watching you since you were a child. The room was spinning again. Elena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. That's not, he couldn't have. I have proof. Kale moved to his desk and pulled out a folder. Photographs of you as a teenager, taken without your knowledge. Notes on your mother's movements before she died. A file on your wolf lineage going back 3 generations. He held out the folder. Elena didn't take it. He married me to control me. Her voice sounded strange to her own ears. To finish what his family started. I believe so. Yes. 5 years. 5 years of marriage to a man who had hunted her mother's people. Who had known what she was before she even knew herself. Who had wrapped his hands around her throat and squeezed, knowing exactly what he was trying to destroy. Elena laughed. It was a horrible sound, cracked and broken and verging on hysterical. I don't believe you, Elena. I don't believe any of this. She was backing toward the door. This is insane. I'm not a werewolf. My mother wasn't a werewolf. And Marcus is a monster, but he's a human monster. He doesn't know about any of this. Look at me. The command in Kale's voice stopped her. She met his eyes, and something in her chest lurched. Your eyes, he said softly. What about my eyes? They're changing. Elena turned toward the window, toward the faint reflection in the glass. She saw her own face, pale, drawn, terrified. And her eyes were glowing gold. She screamed. The sound that came out of her wasn't entirely human. Elena stumbled backward, her hands flying to her face as if she could somehow push the wrongness back inside. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, familiar and foreign all at once. The gold was fading now, bleeding back to brown, but she'd seen it. She'd seen it. Get away from me. The words came out guttural, rough. Don't touch me. Cale had moved toward her instinctively, but he stopped at her command. His hands were raised, palms out, the same gesture he'd made in the alley when they first met. I'm not going to hurt you. I know you're not going to hurt me. She was hyperventilating. She couldn't stop. I'm going to hurt me. I'm going to. Something's wrong, something's happening. You're not going to shift. Not yet. Your wolf isn't strong enough. Cale's voice was steady, calm. But she's waking up, Elena. She's been asleep your whole life, and now she's waking up. What you're feeling is normal. Normal? The laugh that escaped her was jagged. Nothing about this is normal. For our kind, it is. Our kind. The words made her want to scream again. She wasn't like him. She couldn't be. She was human. She was ordinary. She was a woman who'd made the mistake of marrying a monster and barely escaped with her life. She wasn't a monster herself. But the gold in her eyes. I need air. She was already moving, yanking open the office door. I need to get out of here. Elena, wait. She ran. Down the hallway. Down the stairs. Through the kitchen where Diana looked up in alarm. Out the back door and into the cold autumn air, her lungs burning, her heart pounding, her vision blurring with tears she refused to let fall. She ran until she couldn't run anymore, until she collapsed at the edge of the lake and knelt there in the dead leaves with her hands pressed flat against the earth. The ground was cold, solid, real. She was real, but what was she? Cale found her an hour later. He didn't approach, just stood at the tree line, a dark silhouette against the fading afternoon light, and waited. I know you're there, Elena said without turning around. I wasn't trying to hide. I told you not to follow me. You told me not to touch you. I'm not touching you. He paused, but I'm not leaving you alone out here in the cold, either. She should have been angry. Should have screamed at him to go away, to leave her alone, to stop pretending he cared about her boundaries when he'd just blown her entire understanding of herself into a million pieces. Instead, she just felt tired. My mother, she said quietly. Tell me about her. Cale moved closer, slow enough that she could stop him if she wanted. When she didn't, he sat down in the leaves a few feet away, his back against a tree. She was beloved, he said. The records I found, they talk about her like she was something special. Omegas usually are. They have a gift for making others feel safe. Protected. Understood. He was quiet for a moment. She survived the massacre because she wasn't there when it happened. She'd gone into town for supplies. By the time she got back, everyone was dead. Elena closed her eyes. The dream came back to her. Fire and screaming and a woman running through the flames. But maybe it hadn't been her mother's memory at all. Maybe it had been the memory of someone else. Someone who hadn't escaped. Why didn't she tell me? I think she wanted to protect you. Hunters target wolves. Especially rare ones like Omegas. If you didn't know what you were, you couldn't accidentally reveal yourself. Cale's voice was gentle. She probably thought she was giving you a chance at a normal life. A normal life. The bitterness in her own voice surprised her. I married the son of the man who killed her family. How's that for normal? You didn't know, but he did. She turned to look at Cale then, and whatever he saw in her face made his jaw tighten. Marcus knew exactly what I was, and he married me anyway. He watched me for years before we even met. She stopped, swallowed. Why? If his family hunts wolves, why didn't he just kill me? I've been trying to figure that out. Cale's expression was dark. My best guess? You're more valuable alive. An Omega's blood has certain properties. Healing abilities. It's possible he was keeping you for. Don't. She held up a hand. Don't finish that sentence. He nodded. Fell silent. They sat there as the sun sank lower, painting the lake in shades of orange and gold. Elena's mind was racing, trying to fit all the pieces together, trying to make sense of a life that had suddenly revealed itself to be built on lies. Her mother had been a wolf. Had hidden it to protect her. Her husband had known all along. Had married her for what she was, not who. And now she was here, sitting next to another wolf who claimed she was his mate, his destiny, his other half. What happens now? She asked. That's up to you. Don't give me that. She turned to face him fully. You just told me I'm half werewolf. That I have a wolf inside me that's been sleeping my whole life. That's going to change things, isn't it? I'm going to change, yes. Then tell me what to expect. Stop treating me like I'm going to break and just tell me the truth. Cale held her gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. Your wolf will continue to wake. The dreams will get more intense. Your senses will sharpen, smell first, then hearing. You might experience mood swings, heightened emotions. The bond between us will strengthen whether you want it to or not. He paused. Eventually, you'll shift. It might take weeks or months, depending on how suppressed your abilities were. But it will happen. And when it does, you'll be one of us. Fully. Something flickered in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear. You'll be able to choose whether you want to accept the mate bond. The pull will be stronger for you then. You'll understand what it feels like to have a wolf calling out for its other half. Elena thought about that. Thought about what it would mean to feel the thing he'd described, that magnetic, irresistible pull toward another person. Part of her recoiled from the idea. She'd spent 5 years trapped by a man who claimed she belonged to him. The last thing she wanted was to be bound to someone else. But another part of her, a small, quiet part she barely recognized, wondered what it would feel like to be wanted that way. To be someone's destiny instead of someone's possession. I'm not ready, she said. I know, I might never be ready. I know that too. Cale stood, brushing leaves from his pants. But I'm not going anywhere, Elena. However long it takes, whatever you decide, I'll be here. He offered her his hand. She looked at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, she took it and let him pull her to her feet. His skin was warm against hers. Warmer than a human's should be. She felt something stir in her chest at the contact, something that wasn't quite fear, wasn't quite attraction, but something in between. Something that felt like waking up. I want to see the files, she said. Everything you have on my mother. On Marcus. On the Silver Creek pack. Done. And I want to start training. If I'm going to turn into a wolf eventually, I should know what I'm doing. Something shifted in Cale's expression. Pride, maybe, or respect. I'll have Maya start working with you tomorrow. Not Maya. Elena held his gaze. You. He went still. Elena, you said you'd give me space. You have. But if I'm going to learn how to be a wolf, I want to learn from the best. She lifted her chin. And from what I hear, that's you. For a moment, he just stared at her. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face. It transformed him, softened the hard lines, brightened the amber eyes. Tomorrow morning, he said. 6 a.m. Don't be late. She nodded once and walked past him, toward the house. She could feel his eyes on her back the whole way, but this time, she didn't pretend she didn't notice. This time, she let herself feel it. And somewhere deep inside her, something that had been sleeping for 22 years opened its eyes and lifted its head. Finally, it seemed to say. Finally, you see. Chapter 4. Marcus Valdez had always been a patient man. It was the quality he prized most in himself. The ability to wait, to watch, to let his prey believe they'd escaped before closing the trap. He'd learned it from his father, who'd learned it from his father before him. 3 generations of hunters, each one more refined than the last. Elena thought she'd gotten away. Thought her little disappearing act had worked. But Marcus had been tracking wolves since before she was born. Did she really think a few days' head start would make any difference? He stood at the edge of Blackwood territory, flanked by 12 of his best men. They weren't police. Police asked questions, followed procedures, required warrants. These men were specialists, hunters who'd been raised to kill the creatures that hid among humanity. Each one carried weapons designed specifically for werewolf extermination, silver core ammunition, wolfsbane grenades, UV flashbangs that disrupted the shift. The border was marked by nothing visible to human eyes, but Marcus knew exactly where it was. He'd studied the old maps, the ones passed down through hunter families for generations. The Blackwood Pack had controlled this territory for 200 years. That was about to change. Sir, one of his men nodded toward the tree line. Movement. Marcus smiled. Let them come. 3 figures emerged from the forest. 2 were clearly wolves. Large men with the predatory grace that always made Marcus's trigger finger itch. The third was the Alpha himself. Cale Blackwood. Marcus had done his research. The Blackwood Alpha was old, older than anyone realized. Nearly 3 centuries of accumulated power and political connections. He'd built his pack into one of the strongest in North America, carefully avoiding the kind of attention that got wolves hunted. He was impressive, Marcus had to admit. Tall, broad, radiating the kind of authority that made lesser men want to kneel. But Marcus Valdez knelt to no one. Mr. Valdez. Cale's voice carried across the 20 feet between them. You're trespassing. I'm standing on public land. Your territory doesn't start for another 100 yards. Marcus kept his hands visible, casual. I'm not here for a fight. Then why are you here? I want my wife back. Something shifted in the alpha's expression. A tightening around the jaw, a flash of gold in the eyes. Interesting. The mate bond was real, then. Marcus had suspected as much. Elena isn't your wife anymore, Cale said. She left you. Elena is confused. She's had a difficult few weeks, and she made some poor decisions. I'm here to take her home. Marcus tilted his head. Unless you're in the habit of kidnapping married women? The two wolves flanking Cale growled. Actual growls, low and threatening, the kind of sound that should have been terrifying. Marcus found it almost quaint. She came to me willingly, Cale said. She asked for protection. I gave it. That's not kidnapping. It's harboring a fugitive. Elena is wanted by the police. Did you know that? Mental health crisis. I've been very public about my concern for her safety. Marcus pulled out his phone, made a show of checking the screen. In fact, I have officers standing by right now. One call, and this becomes a very public situation. Call them. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? Call them. Cale's voice was steady. Bring them here. Let them search my property. They won't find her. It was a bluff. Had to be. But there was something in the alpha's eyes, a certainty that made Marcus hesitate. Let me be more direct, Marcus said. I know what you are. I know what your pack is. And I have proof. He reached into his jacket, ignoring the way Cale's wolves tensed. Photographs, videos, testimony from witnesses who've seen your people shift. Enough evidence to make headlines in every major newspaper in the country. He held up a tablet, turned it so Cale could see the screen. A video was playing, grainy security footage of a wolf transforming back into human form in what looked like an alley behind a restaurant. The timestamp was from 12 days ago. The night Cale had found Elena. Your existence has been a secret for centuries, Marcus continued. How long do you think it would stay that way once this goes public? A week? A day? Your pack would be hunted, studied, experimented on. Every wolf in North America would be in danger. He smiled, all because you decided to keep something that didn't belong to you. Silence stretched between them. When Cale spoke, his voice had dropped into a register that was barely human. You would expose your own wife? Elena is half wolf. Her mother's bloodline is well documented in my family's records. Once this goes public, she'll be just as hunted as the rest of you. Marcus spread his hands. But I'm a reasonable man. Return her to me, and none of this has to happen. The evidence stays buried. Your pack stays hidden. Everyone wins. Except Elena. Elena is my concern, not yours. The alpha took a step forward. His eyes were glowing now, bright gold bleeding into the brown. Behind him, his wolves shifted uneasily. Here's my counter offer. Cale's voice was a growl. Walk away. Take your hunters and your threats and your evidence and leave my territory. Do that, and I'll let you live. Marcus laughed. He couldn't help it. You're threatening me? I have 12 men, each one armed with enough silver to bring down 100 wolves. You have 2. The math isn't complicated. I have 300 wolves within howling distance. And unlike your men, we don't need weapons. Cale's smile showed too many teeth. The math isn't complicated. They stared at each other across the invisible line of the border. Two predators, neither willing to back down. 24 hours, Marcus said finally. You have 24 hours to return Elena to me. After that, I release everything. And then I come back with a lot more than 12 men. He turned and walked away, not bothering to look back. His hunters fell into formation around him, professional and silent. 24 hours. It was more than enough time. Elena had heard everything. She'd slipped out of the house at dawn, following the sound of voices toward the territory border. Now she crouched behind a massive oak, her newly sharpened hearing picking up every word of the confrontation. Marcus was here. Marcus had found her, and he was going to destroy everyone who'd helped her. She pressed her back against the tree, trying to slow her breathing. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure the wolves could hear it. Maybe they could. Maybe Cale already knew she was here, was already formulating a plan to keep her safe. But there was no plan that could keep everyone safe. Not from this. 300 wolves against hunters with silver weapons and the power of public exposure. Even if Cale won the physical battle, he'd lose the larger war. His pack would be exposed. Hunted. Everything they'd built for centuries would be destroyed. Because of her. Because Marcus wanted her back, and he was willing to burn down the whole world to get her. I'd burn down the whole world before I'd let you go. She'd thought he was being dramatic. Possessive in the way rich men were possessive of their cars and their houses and their wives. She hadn't understood that he meant it literally. Elena waited until the hunters had retreated, until Cale and his wolves had disappeared back into the forest. Then she made her way back to the house through the trees, her mind racing. 24 hours. She had 24 hours to make a choice. She already knew what that choice had to be. The note was harder to write than she expected. Elena sat at the desk in her room, pen hovering over paper, trying to find the words. How did you explain to someone that you were leaving to protect them? How did you make them understand that this wasn't running away, it was the only way to keep them safe? Cale, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know you'll be angry. I know you'll try to come after me. Please don't. Marcus will destroy your pack if you keep me here. He has the evidence. He has the resources. He has the patience to wait until he wins. You know I'm right. I'm not worth it. I'm not worth 300 lives. I'm not worth centuries of secrecy. I'm not worth you. Please let me go. Please let this be my choice. She stopped. Read what she'd written. It wasn't enough. It didn't explain everything. Couldn't explain the thing she'd asked Maya about 2 nights ago. The rejection ritual. Maya had been horrified, had tried to talk her out of it, had begged her not to even consider it. But Elena had been researching, using the library in the estate, asking careful questions, piecing together the truth. The mate bond wasn't unbreakable. It could be severed. The process was painful, dangerous, and left permanent scars on both parties. But once it was done, the bond was gone. Completely. The rejected mate would be free to find another. Cale could find another Luna. Someone who wasn't being hunted by her psychotic ex-husband. Someone who wouldn't put his entire pack at risk just by existing. Elena added one more line to the note. Don't wait for me. Don't look for me. Find someone who deserves you. Elena. She folded the paper, left it on the pillow where she'd been sleeping for the past week. Then she pulled on her coat, slipped out the window, and disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness. Elena. Cale's roar shook the windows of the main house. Maya reached his office 30 seconds later, already knowing something was catastrophically wrong. She'd felt it, a ripple through the pack bond, a wave of rage and anguish so powerful it had knocked her out of sleep. Her brother was standing in the middle of his office, Elena's note crumpled in his fist. He was shaking, actually shaking, his whole body vibrating with the effort of holding back his wolf. What happened? She's gone. The words came out strangled. She left. She's going back to him. What? No. That doesn't make sense. She thinks she's protecting us. Cale's laugh was horrible, broken and raw. She heard me talking to Marcus at the border. She knows what he threatened. And she decided the best way to keep the pack safe was to turn herself over to the man who's been hunting her kind for 30 years. Maya reached for the note, but Cale's hand clenched tighter, crumpling it further. Cale, let me see. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't. Then he thrust the paper at her, turning away to face the window. Maya smoothed out the note and read it. Her stomach dropped. Don't wait for me. Find someone who deserves you. Oh, Elena, you absolute idiot. There's something you should know, Maya said quietly. What? 2 nights ago, Elena came to me with questions. About pack history. About bonds. Maya took a breath. About the rejection ritual. Cale went utterly still. She wasn't just leaving, Cale. She was planning to sever the bond permanently. So you could find another mate. She was trying to free me. The words were barely audible. She was trying to free me. Yes, the sound that came out of Cale wasn't human. It wasn't wolf either, it was something in between, something anguished and terrible. His shift began without warning, more violent than Maya had seen in years. Bones cracked, muscles tore and reformed. Fur erupted across skin that was stretching, reshaping, becoming something else entirely. Within seconds, a massive black wolf stood where her brother had been. It threw back its head and howled, a sound of such raw grief that Maya felt tears spring to her eyes. Then it crashed through the window and disappeared into the forest. It took 2 hours to get Cale back. Dominic found him first, pacing the border like a caged animal, snarling at anyone who came close. It took the combined efforts of the Beta and 3 senior pack members to talk him down, to coax the human mind back to the surface. When Cale finally shifted back, he was naked and covered in scratches from tearing through the underbrush. Diana appeared with clothes and coffee and a look that said she knew exactly what had happened and was reserving judgment until she'd heard the whole story. They gathered in the war room, Kale, Dominic, Maya, and the inner circle of the pack's leadership. 8 wolves total, the core of Blackwood power. We know where she's going, Dominic said. Marcus's estate is 40 miles south. If she left at dawn, she won't be there yet. We can intercept her. And then what? One of the older wolves, Helena, who'd been with the pack for over a century, crossed her arms. We drag her back against her will? She made a choice. She made a sacrifice, Maya snapped. There's a difference, is there? The girl barely knows us. She's been here, what, 2 weeks? And now we're supposed to start a war over her? She's the alpha's mate. She's a liability. Helena's voice was sharp. A human who brings hunters to our doorstep. The smart move is to let her go. Let Marcus have his wife back. Let this whole situation disappear. Silence fell over the room. Maya could feel the tension, the pack's loyalty warring with their survival instincts. Helena wasn't wrong. From a purely strategic standpoint, letting Elena go was the safest choice. But Kale wasn't looking at strategy. He was looking at the note in his hand, reading those last lines over and over. Find someone who deserves you. She's not a liability. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. Everyone went still. She's not a human. Kale looked up, and his eyes were glowing gold. She's not even just my mate. He stood, moved to the head of the table. Elena Valdez is half-wolf. Her mother was an Omega from Silver Creek, a pack that was slaughtered by the very family that's been hunting her. She survived 5 years of abuse at the hands of a man who knew exactly what she was and kept her anyway. She escaped with nothing. She fought to survive, and when she finally found safety, when she finally found somewhere she might belong, she gave it up to protect us. He looked around the table, meeting every pair of eyes. She doesn't know us. We've given her nothing but shelter and information and the burden of learning that everything she thought about herself was wrong. And her response? Her response was to walk into the arms of the man who's been hunting her kind for 30 years, just so he wouldn't hurt us. Kale's voice rose. That's not weakness. That's not liability. That's strength. That's sacrifice. That's exactly the kind of person this pack should be fighting for. He slammed his palm down on the table. She's our Luna, whether she knows it yet or not. Whether she accepts it or not. And we are going to bring her home. The room erupted. Maya felt her heart swell with something that might have been pride. This was her brother, not just the alpha, not just the leader, but the man who'd spent 200 years protecting his pack and had finally found someone worth fighting for. The hunters have silver, Dominic said, cutting through the noise. They're armed for a full assault. We can't just charge in. We won't. Kale's expression had shifted, becoming tactical. Calculating. Marcus wants a war. We're going to give him something else. What? Kale smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. A lesson in what happens when you take something from a wolf. Elena walked. She'd left her phone at the estate, couldn't risk Kale tracking her. She had no money, no car, no identification. Just her feet and the road and the growing certainty that she was doing the right thing. The sun rose behind her, warming her back. She kept moving, 1 foot in front of the other. 20 miles to Marcus's estate, if she remembered the maps correctly. She could make it by nightfall. Her wolf, the new part of her, the part that had been waking up over the past 2 weeks, was howling in protest. It didn't understand why they were walking away from their mate. It couldn't comprehend the logic of sacrifice. Go back, it seemed to whimper. Go back to him. I can't, Elena said out loud. I have to keep them safe. He keeps us safe. Mate keeps us safe. Not from this. The wolf subsided, but Elena could feel its misery, a cold weight in her chest that made it hard to breathe. The bond was pulling at her, trying to drag her back toward Kale. Every step away felt like tearing off a piece of her own skin. Maya had warned her about this. About how the rejection ritual would feel. Like dying, she'd said. Like ripping out your own heart and watching it burn. Elena had thought she could handle it. She'd survived 5 years with Marcus. She'd survived beatings and isolation and the slow erosion of everything that made her herself. She could survive this, but God, it hurt. Around midday, she stopped to rest by a stream. Her feet were blistered, her muscles aching. She hadn't eaten since yesterday, and her stomach was cramping with hunger. This was stupid. She was going to collapse before she even got to Marcus. But what choice did she have? She couldn't stay, couldn't put Kale and his pack at risk. couldn't be the reason 300 wolves were exposed to the world. She was thinking about getting up, about forcing herself back onto the road, when she heard the car. It was a black SUV, rolling slowly down the highway toward her. Alina's heart seized. No, not yet. She wasn't ready. But the SUV pulled over, and the door opened, and Marcus stepped out with a smile that made her blood run cold. "Hello, wife." He spread his arms. "I've been waiting for you." Alina stood. Her legs were shaking, but she made herself meet his eyes. "I'm coming back." "I know you are. I have conditions." Marcus laughed. "You're not really in a position to negotiate. You want me to come willingly. You want me to play the repentant wife, tell the police I had a breakdown, make all of this go away." Alina lifted her chin. "I'll do it, but only if you leave the Blackwood pack alone. Destroy the evidence. Walk away." "And why would I do that?" "Because otherwise I'll tell everyone what you are. What your family has done for generations. You think exposing werewolves will make you a hero? What happens when the world finds out you've been hunting them? That your family massacred an entire pack 20 years ago?" She stepped closer. "You'll be a monster, Marcus. A murderer. Everything you've built will collapse." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or grudging respect. "You've grown some teeth," he said. "I learned from the best." They stared at each other across the distance. Hunter and hunted, predator and prey, except Alina wasn't sure anymore which one she was. "Get in the car," Marcus said finally. "We'll discuss terms on the way home." Alina walked toward the SUV. Each step felt like a nail in her coffin. But she kept walking. Because that was what you did when you loved someone. You walked into the fire to keep them from burning. 50 miles away, Cale felt the moment Alina crossed the border into Marcus's territory. It was like a cord snapping in his chest, a sudden, agonizing absence where the bond had been. She was still alive, still connected to him, but the distance was growing. Stretching. Soon, if she went through with the rejection ritual, it would break entirely. He wouldn't let that happen. "She's with him." Dominic appeared at his side. "My scouts just confirmed. They're heading toward his estate." "How many guards?" 12 at the house. Another 20 on the property. Plus the hunters. 40 men, armed with silver and wolfsbane and the knowledge of exactly how to kill his kind. Against Cale's 30 best warriors. The odds weren't great, but Cale had never let odds stop him before. "Move out," he ordered. "We hit them at dusk." The wolves began to shift. 30 bodies transformed in a ripple of fur and muscle, becoming something ancient and terrible and beautiful. Cale shifted last. His wolf rose to the surface gladly, eager for the hunt. Eager for blood. "Mate," it growled. "Get mate back." Yes, they would get their mate back. And God help anyone who tried to stop them. Chapter 5. The bedroom hadn't changed. Alina stood in the center of the room that had been her prison for 5 years, taking in the familiar details. The silk drapes she'd chosen because Marcus liked blue. The antique vanity where she'd sat every morning, applying makeup to hide bruises. The king-sized bed where she'd learned to make herself small, to take up as little space as possible, to pretend she was sleeping when she heard his footsteps in the hall. Everything was exactly the same. But she wasn't. "You look tired." Marcus stood in the doorway, watching her with the satisfied expression of a cat that had cornered a mouse. "Why don't you rest? We'll talk about your adventure over dinner." "I'm not hungry." "You'll eat anyway." His smile didn't waver. "We have a lot to discuss. Your mental health, for one. The doctors I've consulted recommend a minimum 6-month stay at a private facility." Very discreet, very effective. Alina felt her hands curl into fists. "I'm not crazy." "Of course you're not, but perception is reality, isn't it? And right now, the perception is that my wife had a complete breakdown. Attacked me, fled into the night with a stolen knife." Marcus tsked softly. "Very concerning behavior." "I didn't attack you. The police report says otherwise." He moved toward her, slow and confident, the way he always moved when he knew he had the upper hand. Alina forced herself to stay still. Not to flinch, not to give him the satisfaction. "I've missed you," Marcus said, reaching out to touch her face. "The house has been so empty without you." His fingers brushed her cheek, and something inside Alina snapped. She grabbed his wrist before she realized she was moving. Twisted, hard. Marcus yelped, an undignified sound she'd never heard him make, and stumbled back, cradling his arm. "Don't touch me." Her voice came out different. Deeper, rougher, like there was something else speaking through her. Marcus's expression shifted from surprise to something darker. More dangerous. So the little mouse has learned to bite. He straightened, rolling his wrist. Your mother was the same way. Meek as a lamb until you pushed her too far. Then, he smiled. Then she showed her true colors. You knew my mother? I knew of her. The Omega who escaped the Silver Creek massacre. My father was furious. She was supposed to be his prize. Omega blood is rare, valuable. He tracked her for years, but she was clever. Changed her name, married a human, had a half-breed daughter and raised her to think she was normal. Marcus moved toward the door, still talking, still casual, like they were discussing the weather. When she died, we thought the bloodline was lost. But then I found you. Hiding in plain sight. A little Omega with no idea what she was. He paused at the threshold. I've been patient, Elena. I've waited years for your wolf to wake. And now, finally, she's starting to surface. I can smell it on you. Elena's stomach turned. What do you want from me? What I've always wanted. Your blood, your power, your submission. His eyes glittered. You belong to me, Elena. You always have. And once I've broken whatever bond you've formed with that alpha, you always will. He closed the door. She heard the lock click into place. Elena sank onto the edge of the bed, her whole body shaking. Not with fear this time. With rage. The sun was setting when the first howl split the air. Elena had been pacing the room for hours, trying to find a way out. The windows were barred. She'd forgotten about that. How Marcus had installed them after she'd tried to jump from the second floor 3 years ago. The door was solid oak, reinforced with steel. No way to break through. But when she heard the howl, she stopped. It was distant, mournful, and somehow, impossibly, familiar. Kale. Her wolf surged forward so hard it made her gasp. The bond, the one she'd tried so hard to ignore, to deny, to sever, blazed to life in her chest like a banked fire suddenly fed oxygen. He was here. He'd come for her. Another howl answered the first. Then another. And another. A chorus of wolves, dozens of them, surrounding the estate. Elena ran to the window, pressing her face against the bars. In the fading light, she could see shapes moving at the edge of the property. Dark shapes. Wolf shapes. The hunters saw them too. Shouts rang out across the grounds. Spotlights flared to life, sweeping the tree line. She heard the distinctive crack of gunfire, silver bullets, she knew now. Designed to kill the creatures coming to save her. The bedroom door burst open. Marcus stood there, gun in hand, his face twisted with fury. What did you do? What did you tell them? Nothing. Elena backed away. I couldn't. They're attacking my home. 30 wolves against my men. He stalked toward her. This is your fault. Everything is your fault. I came back. I gave myself up to protect them. And they came anyway. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your precious alpha doesn't understand when he's beaten. He doesn't understand that some things belong to me. He grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the door. Elena struggled, but his grip was iron. Let go of me. We're going to the panic room. And if those animals breach my defenses, I'll put a bullet in your brain before I let them take you back. He shoved her into the hallway. Move. The compound was chaos. Kale tore through the first line of hunters like they were paper. His wolf was in full control now, driven by a single, overwhelming imperative. Get to mate. Protect mate. Kill anyone who stands in the way. Around him, his pack fought with the same ferocity. Silver bullets burned when they hit, but wolves healed fast, faster than the hunters expected. For every wolf that went down, 3 hunters fell. But they weren't here for the hunters. They were here for Elena. Where is she? Kale reached the main house, shifting mid-stride back to human form. Dominic appeared beside him, bloody but standing, pressing a hand to a wound in his side that was already closing. She's inside. 2nd floor, east wing. How do you know? I can smell her. Dominic's eyes flashed. And I can smell him. They're moving, heading down. Kale didn't wait for more. He crashed through the front door, took out 2 guards before they could raise their weapons, and ran for the stairs. The house was a maze, hallways and doors and rooms designed to confuse intruders. But Kale didn't need directions. The bond was alive again, burning in his chest, pulling him toward her like a compass pointing north. I'm coming, Elena. Hold on. The panic room was in the basement. Elena stumbled down the stairs, Marcus's gun pressed against her spine. She could hear the fighting above them, crashes, gunshots, howls. The pack was winning. She could feel it through the bond, feel Kale's presence getting closer. But they weren't going to reach her in time. In here, Marcus shoved her through a heavy steel door into a windowless concrete room. Banks of monitors lined one wall, showing feeds from security cameras around the property. Elena watched in horror as wolves tore through hunters, as bodies fell, as the grounds of the estate became a battlefield. Your alpha is persistent, Marcus said, studying the screens. I'll give him that, but this room is impenetrable. He could have 100 wolves, and they wouldn't get through that door. Then what's your plan? Stay here forever? My plan is to wait until reinforcements arrive. I have hunters on the way from 3 states. In 2 hours, this will all be over. He turned to face her. And then I'll kill your alpha while you watch. Make you understand that fighting me is pointless. Elena's wolf snarled inside her. The sound that came out of her throat was barely human. There it is. Marcus's smile was hungry. Let her out, Elena. Show me what you really are. You don't want that. Oh, but I do. I've waited so long. He moved closer, backing her against the wall. Do you know how hard it's been? Watching you for years, waiting for the shift that never came? Your mother must have suppressed it somehow. Hidden your nature so deep even you didn't know it existed. He raised his hand, and she knew what was coming. Had felt it 100 times before. His palm cracked across her face. Elena's head snapped to the side. Pain exploded through her cheek, her jaw, her neck. The familiar shock of impact, the ringing in her ears, the taste of blood in her mouth. But this time, something else happened. This time, she growled. The sound ripped out of her chest, low and savage and utterly inhuman. Her vision flickered, the room going sharp, then blurry, colors washing out to grays and blues. Her hands cramped, fingers curling into shapes they weren't meant to hold. Marcus's eyes widened. Yes, there she is. He hit her again. Elena's wolf exploded. Cale heard the scream. Not Elena's scream, Marcus's. A high, terrified sound that cut off abruptly. He was in the basement hallway, facing a steel door that looked like it could withstand a nuclear blast. Dominic and 3 other wolves flanked him, all of them bloody, all of them breathing hard. We can't get through this, Dominic said. Not without explosives. Then find explosives. Cale. A crash from inside the room. Then another scream. Marcus again, raw with pain and fear. Then silence. Cale pressed his hand against the door, feeling for vibrations, for any sign of what was happening inside. His wolf was howling, desperate to reach their mate, but there was nothing he could do. Nothing except wait. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Elena stood in the doorway. She was covered in blood, her own or Marcus's, he couldn't tell. Her clothes were torn. Her face was bruised, swelling where she'd been hit. But her eyes were pure gold. Elena, he's alive. Her voice was strange, rough. Not quite her own. I didn't kill him. I wanted to, but I didn't. Cale stepped into the panic room. Marcus was crumpled against the far wall, bleeding from deep gashes across his chest and face. His gun was on the floor, the barrel bent at an impossible angle. He was whimpering. How? Cale breathed. I shifted. Sort of. Elena looked down at her hands. They were trembling, the nails longer than they should be, almost like claws. It hurt. It's still. I can still feel her. Trying to come out, she was caught between forms, trapped in a half-shift that her inexperienced body didn't know how to complete or release. It had to be agonizing. Let me help. Cale reached for her, slowly, giving her time to pull away if she needed to. I can guide you through it. Help you shift back. Not yet. She walked past him, toward Marcus. Each step was unsteady, her body struggling against the transformation trying to complete itself, but her eyes never wavered. Marcus tried to scramble away, but there was nowhere to go. His back hit the wall. His face, what was left of it, twisted with terror. Please. The word came out wet, gurgling. Please, I'll give you anything. Money, freedom, whatever you want. Elena crouched in front of him. Do you know what I want? No. I want to understand. Her voice was calm now. Terrifyingly calm. I want to understand how someone can do what you did to me. How you can look at another person and see nothing but a thing to own. A possession to control. Elena, I spent 5 years trying to be good enough for you. Trying to be small enough, quiet enough, perfect enough that you'd stop hurting me. Do you know what that does to a person? Do you know what it feels like to hate yourself because someone else's fists told you that you deserved it? Marcus was crying now. Actual tears streaming down his bloodied face. Elena stood. He's mine to kill. Cale went still. Elena. He hunted my mother's people. He kept me prisoner for half a decade. He was going to sell my blood to the highest bidder. She turned to face Cale, and the gold in her eyes was blazing. You would do it. If he'd taken something precious from you, you would end him without hesitation. Yes, then let me. Cale wanted to say no. Wanted to tell her that killing changed you, that it left marks on your soul that never faded, that he would carry this burden for her if she'd let him. But he looked at her, at this woman who had survived so much, who had come so far, who had fought her way out of the darkness through sheer force of will, and he realized that this wasn't his choice to make. He's yours, Cale said quietly. Do what you need to do. Elena turned back to Marcus. For a long moment, she just stood there, looking down at the man who had been her nightmare for 5 years. Her hands were still shaking. Her wolf was still pressing against her skin, howling for blood. Then she took a breath. No, Marcus sobbed with relief. No, Elena repeated, because killing you would be mercy. You don't deserve mercy. She crouched again, bringing her face close to his. You're going to live, Marcus. You're going to live with what I did to you. You're going to look in the mirror every day and see the scars I gave you, and you're going to remember that the broken little mouse you tried to destroy? She was a wolf all along. She stood, swaying slightly. And if you ever come near me or my pack again, I won't be so generous. Her knees buckled. Cale caught her before she hit the ground. The shift completed on the lawn of Marcus's estate, surrounded by 30 wolves who had fought for her. Elena screamed as her bones broke and reformed. As her muscles tore and rebuilt themselves in new configurations. As her skin split to make way for fur and her face stretched into a shape that shouldn't have been possible. Cale talked her through it, his voice steady, constant, anchoring her to reality as her body became something new. That's it. Let it happen. Don't fight it. She knows what she's doing. Trust your wolf. The pain was beyond anything she'd ever experienced. Beyond Marcus's fists, beyond the years of fear, beyond even the agony of leaving Cale at dawn. But underneath the pain, there was something else. Freedom. When the shift finally completed, Elena opened her eyes and saw the world in a way she never had before. Colors were muted but shapes were sharper. Smells exploded across her consciousness, blood and earth and pine and, underneath it all, the warm, vital scent of mate. She was a wolf. She was finally, completely, herself. Cale shifted beside her, his massive black form pressing against her smaller gray one. Around them, the pack gathered, dozens of wolves forming a protective circle. Welcome home, Cale's voice said in her mind. Not words exactly, more like feelings, images, a language that transcended speech. Elena pressed her muzzle against his neck and let herself breathe. The next 3 days were the hardest of Elena's life. Not because of the shift. That got easier each time she practiced, her wolf settling into its new existence with a contentment Elena hadn't felt in years. The hard part was everything else. The police came. Marcus's hunters had fled, but the bodies remained, dozens of them, scattered across the property. The official story, cobbled together by Dominic and a pack lawyer who specialized in supernatural cover-ups, was a home invasion gone wrong. Elena had been kidnapped. Marcus had been attacked by intruders. The wolves had been large dogs. It was a flimsy explanation, but money and influence worked miracles. Marcus was in a hospital under guard, his injuries too severe to allow for questioning. Elena was, officially, the victim. She didn't feel like a victim. She felt like a monster. You're not eating. Elena looked up from her untouched plate. Cale was watching her from across the dining room table, his expression carefully neutral. I'm not hungry. You haven't been hungry for 3 days. You need to eat. I know what I need. The words came out sharper than she intended. I'm sorry. I'm just processing. Yeah. She pushed her food around with a fork. I almost killed him. I wanted to kill him. And then I didn't, but I don't know if that was mercy or cowardice or just. I don't know what it was. Cale didn't answer immediately. He just sat there, steady and patient, the same way he'd been sitting for 3 days while she worked through the tangle of emotions that the fight had left behind. When I was young, he said finally, I killed a man who deserved it. He'd murdered my father. Tried to take the pack by force. I ripped his throat out in front of everyone, and I felt nothing but satisfaction. Elena looked up. It took me years to feel anything else. To understand that the satisfaction was real, but it wasn't the only thing. That taking a life, even a life that deserved to be taken, changes something inside you. He met her eyes. You chose not to kill Marcus. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you stronger than I was at your age. I don't feel strong. You will. Eventually. They sat in silence for a long moment. Elena forced herself to take a bite of food. It tasted like ash, but she chewed and swallowed anyway. Why are you being so patient with me? The question surprised her as much as it seemed to surprise him. What do you mean? I mean, she gestured vaguely. All of this. The bond, the mate thing, whatever we are. You keep saying I can take my time, that you'll wait, that you won't push. But why? Any other wolf would have. I don't know. Claimed me by now or whatever. I'm not any other wolf. That's not an answer. Kale stood, moved around the table until he was standing beside her chair. Then he crouched down so they were at eye level, the same way he'd done that first night in the alley. Because you spent years being told you were nothing, he said quietly. Being made to feel small, worthless, invisible. You learned to survive by shrinking yourself, by becoming what someone else wanted you to be. I'm not going to add to that. I'm not going to demand that you become what I want. His hand came up, hovering near her face without quite touching. I have forever to show you what you actually are. And what you are, Elena, is extraordinary. She felt tears burning in her eyes. Refused to let them fall. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to be a wolf. I don't know how to be a Luna. I don't know how to be anything except afraid. Then we start there. Kale's smile was gentle. We start with learning not to be afraid. 1 week later, Elena stood before the assembled pack. 300 wolves, gathered in the great hall of the Blackwood estate. They'd come from across the territory, families and elders and children and warriors. All of them watching her with expressions that ranged from curious to skeptical to openly hostile. Elena had asked for this. Had told Kale she needed to face them, to speak to them, to make them understand who she was and what she intended to be. He'd tried to talk her out of it. Had pointed out that she was still recovering, still learning, still fragile in ways that had nothing to do with physical strength. She'd insisted. Now, standing at the front of the hall with Kale beside her, she was seriously rethinking that decision. Most of you don't know me. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. You know who I am. The alpha's mate, the half-breed, the human woman who brought hunters to your doorstep. But you don't know me. She took a breath. My name is Elena Valdez. My mother was Isabella Reyes, an Omega from the Silver Creek Pack. She survived a massacre, fell in love with a human, and raised a daughter who didn't know she was anything other than ordinary. Elena let her gaze travel across the crowd. I spent 22 years not knowing what I was. 5 of those years, I spent as the prisoner of a man who knew exactly what I was and wanted to use me for it. The hall was silent. Every eye was on her. I'm not going to stand here and promise you that I'll be a good Luna. I don't know how to be a Luna. I don't know your traditions. I don't know your history. I don't know half of what I should about being a wolf. She lifted her chin. But I know what it feels like to be hunted. I know what it feels like to survive when everything in the world is trying to break you. And I know that this pack, this family, fought for me when they had every reason not to. She found Maya in the crowd. Dominic, Diana, the faces she'd come to know over the past weeks. I'm not asking you to accept me because of the mate bond. I'm asking you to give me a chance to earn your trust. To learn, to become someone worthy of the title your alpha wants to give me. She paused, and I'm asking you to be patient, because I'm going to make mistakes. A lot of them, but I promise you this. I will never stop trying to be better. I will never stop fighting for this pack. And I will never, ever let anyone threaten our family again. Silence. Then Maya started clapping. It spread, slowly at first, then faster, until the hall was filled with applause that shook the rafters. Not everyone was clapping, Elena noticed. There were still skeptics, still doubters. But more were than weren't. It was a start. Kale's hand found hers. She gripped it tight, drawing strength from his touch. That was brave, he murmured. That was terrifying. Same thing, sometimes. They stood together as the applause faded, as the pack began to disperse, as the reality of what she'd just committed to settled over her like a weight. Elena looked up at Kale. At this man, this wolf, who had walked into an alley and changed her life forever. Who had fought for her, waited for her, believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. I'm ready, she said. Ready for what? To learn, to try, to be. She struggled for the right word. Yours. Kale's expression softened. His hand came up to cup her face, and this time she didn't flinch. You've always been mine, he said. And I've always been yours. That's what the bond means. Not ownership, not possession, just belonging. 2 halves of something whole. Elena felt her wolf stir inside her. Felt the bond between them pulse with warmth and certainty in something that might, someday, become love. Then teach me, she said. Teach me how to belong. Cale smiled, leaned down, pressed his forehead against hers. Forever, he promised. And when Elena's eyes flashed gold, she finally understood what that word meant. Not a cage, not a threat, a beginning. 6 months later, Elena stood at the edge of the lake, watching the sunrise paint the water in shades of gold and rose. Her wolf was quiet inside her, content in a way that still surprised her sometimes. So much had changed. Marcus was in prison, awaiting trial for crimes that had nothing to do with wolves, financial fraud, mostly, uncovered during the investigation into his home invasion. He would spend the rest of his life behind bars. It wasn't the justice Elena had wanted, but it was enough. The pack had accepted her. Not all at once, not without resistance, but gradually, as she'd learned their traditions and earned their trust. She'd trained with Maya, studied with the elders, fought beside the warriors. She wasn't the Luna they'd expected. She was something better, something new. Footsteps behind her. She didn't need to turn to know who it was. You're up early. Cale's arms wrapped around her from behind, pulling her back against his chest. Couldn't sleep. She leaned into him, letting his warmth seep into her. Too much thinking. About what? About how different everything is. How different I am. She turned in his arms to face him. A year ago, I was running for my life with a stolen knife. Now I'm a Luna, a wolf, a survivor. Cale's smile was soft, a miracle. I was going to say, happy. She reached up, tracing the line of his jaw. I don't think I even knew what that word meant before. And now? Now I know it means this. Standing here with you, belonging somewhere, being free. Cale kissed her, soft, sweet, full of promise. I love you, he said when they parted. I should have said it sooner. I should have said it 1,000 times by now. You showed me instead. Elena smiled. That counted more. They stood together as the sun rose higher, as the day began, as the future stretched out before them, uncertain and terrifying and full of possibilities. Elena's eyes flashed gold. Come on, she said. Teach me something new. And Cale laughed, shifted, and raced her into the forest. She followed. She always would. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe, like and share this video to continue listening to this type of story daily and also to appreciate this community too. I would like to hear your wonderful opinion about this story. Please comment below.